3, 2, 1.
All right. Thank you, everybody, both CPC members and applicants. Appreciate you doing this at our 3 o'clock start time. I appreciate you all being here. I'm Tom Callahan, the newly elected chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and let's do a roll call. And Pete.
Here.
And why don't you introduce yourself as part of this roll call?
Pete Jackson, I'm an at-large member of the committee.
Ted?
Ted Carroll, Park Commissioner.
Cheryl?
Cheryl Tagayas, Planning Board Representative.
And Joe?
Joe Duffy, Housing Authority Representative.
Okay, great. I almost want to go to Rob to introduce himself, but he's wearing a different hat today. So, all right. So we have seven projects, I think, up on the agenda. For the applicants' benefit, what we've been trying to do, since we have so many applicants this year, 21, I think in total, we've been really trying to, certainly at this eligibility phase, really keep your presentations to 5 minutes, please, if you can. And then we'll allow 5 minutes for questions from the committee members back to you. So we were able to do that in our first meeting. Hopefully we'll have similar success again this afternoon. And why don't we get started? The Kelly Field Dugout project is up first. So I think that's Rob.
Yep, that's me. So you guys don't need my introduction, but Meredith and Kevin, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves? And I will, in the meantime, share my screen and we can get started. Are you able to see my screen now?
We can do that.
All right,
Yep.
good. So hold on one second. Control Enter. There we go. So Meredith O'Neill's with me, who's also on the Milton girls softball. Michael Whitaker couldn't be with us today. He's the president of Milton Babe Ruth Baseball. So Kevin Chisholm will be representing Milton Babe Ruth Baseball. And so we'll just kind of be leading you through our application for Kelly Field softball and baseball field improvements. As you guys might know, the big diamond that's just south here is the Babe Ruth field, and then the Milton girls softball is the diamond that's just up on the north side of the field. So we're just going to go in a little bit, and I'll turn it over to Meredith to just talk a little bit about Milton softball, and then Babe Ruth. Kevin will speak about.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, I'm Meredith O'Neill. I'm one of the vice presidents on the executive board of Milton Girls Softball. Milton Girls Softball has been around for over 50 years. Our mission statement as an independent nonprofit organization, we're committed to providing all girls with an experience that fosters positive self-esteem. So much more than just softball knowledge. We're committed to girls having fun, building leadership skills, and as well as lasting friendships. Besides the girls having fun, we strive to create an environment of teamwork, honesty, and fair play, with winning being kind of the second important for our seasons.
Oh, sorry.
I think I'm going to turn to the next slide.
Yeah.
Kevin will speak to a little bit about Babe Ruth.
Kevin, are you there? Yeah.
Kevin's on mute.
Hi, I'm Kevin Chisholm, the park director here in Milton. I'm also vice president of Babe Ruth and coached baseball here in town for 35 years. Founded in 1951, Milton Babe Ruth has continued to offer competitive baseball for 13 to 16-year-old players in town, for the town of Milton. Our goal is to develop skills through a fun, enjoyable league atmosphere. Most coaches have been involved with the league for over 10 years. We consist of 2 divisions with a total of 11 teams, averaging 15 players to a team. So it's like 165 kids during the spring season. And we also play during the summer. We do travel and in-house leagues, usually 3 times per week, and this provides children an outlet to keep busy over the summer months when they are out of school.
Back to Meredith, just to speak a little bit about the metrics and the usage, as Kevin mentioned previously too.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea of how many families are involved in Milton Girls Softball, this past spring we had over 450 players, ages 5 to 14. So that's starting at kindergarten through 8th grade, and then going to the summer, we actually have an 18U team usually too. So it goes for a while. And so over 450 players, and that's in the spring alone. Many of the same girls, nearly 316 teams worth, also continue softball throughout the summer in either our summer travel league or the town league. So these fields are heavily utilized from April through October with all of these girls constantly playing. Specifically to Kelly Field usage in the spring, there are over 15 games a week. In the summer, at least six games a week, as well as usage by Milton High School freshman and JV teams who, between practice and games, also use Kelly Field 5 times a week. Kevin can speak to baseball field usage at Kelly.
So Kelly, baseball is used heavily as well. People ask me all the time, geez, do you rent out your field? If we had an extra day of the week, maybe, but there's no time to rent anything out. It's so heavily used. And not only just Babe Ruth playing there, the Milton freshman baseball team uses it 5 times a week between practice and games.
So just to speak, I guess the next slide, Meredith, if you want to take that too, just kind of the field locations and facilities of both leagues.
Yep, so obviously for Milton softball, similar to baseball, we have Andrews, Geo Field, Kelly, Cunningham Park. I'll speak to Houghton's in a second, but only one of our softball fields in town, Geo Field at the high school, has dugouts, leaving players at all the other fields without dugouts, open to damaging sun, rain, and leaving fans and spectators also susceptible to foul balls and overthrows, which Rob will touch on in detail next. But yeah, so a lot of our fields are in pretty rough shape. Houghton's Pond, we no longer use. It was shut down due to terrible field conditions, and we had such a shortage, we had to use other towns' resources. In Hyde Park, a softball field this past year, to be able to get additional practices in because of the growing size of our league.
And then Kevin, you can speak to the locations for Babe Ruth.
So Cunningham, this past couple of years, we really haven't been able to utilize Cunningham much at all. Just the time slots on the varsity team using the field there at Milton High, it doesn't work out. And they let AAU and some other teams use it on weekends. So that being said, we use Kelly Fields predominantly and Milton High School, and no dugouts on either of those fields, minimal stands, and absolutely no shade whatsoever.
I just want to remind you guys, you're at 5 minutes already, so just if you could try to.
Yeah, we only have like 2 more slides, so we should be pretty close. I just want to, so I'm going to just speak specifically about the field improvements that we're looking for in the application itself.
Yep.
So I had already mentioned the 2 field diamonds. Basically what we were looking at for the softball diamond and the Babe Ruth diamond, and you can see a picture in the left-hand corner, is a shade structure, including fence improvements, 2 new benches per dugout. So that's in total, there would be 8 new benches. And you can kind of see them highlighted there in red on the fields. And then just overall what that means too for basically the shade structure. This was done at Cunningham recently for Milton National. And what they did was they needed to run it. They ran into a little bit of issues with the support foundations. The good news is we went to the company, the outfitter that did that work. And so we know that there needs to be proper support foundations for the posts on these. There would be new concrete slabs. And as I mentioned, the 8 benches per dugouts. And then the new safety fences, of course, are always important in the game as we go forward. And then just finishing up on this, just to recap of the cost of the project and the budget, the total project cost is in around 204,000. It's about 102,000 per, if we divided it up into two. And then there is some outside funding that's coming from Milton's Parks and Rec, obviously Milton Softball, Milton Babe Ruth program, as well as the Friends of Milton Parks and Recreation for a $27,500 pledge. So the CPA requested from in our application is around 176,500. So that's kind of the accounting and where the project goes, and that's it. So we're open to any questions that you guys may have.
Just on that last slide, Rob, just the 27.5, that's from all four, from Parks and Rec, and then fundraising from Milton Softball, Milton Babe Ruth. Friends.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
everybody combined.
Got it.
Obviously there's a split, but
Yep.
we just wanted to add it all in as one.
Right.
Obviously, like Milton Softball is quite a bigger program than Babe Ruth. But we also, we know it's important. I think one key point to touch on too is the age groups in this, that, Babe Ruth, the funding for older kids, I think is important, as well as the women that are on softball.
Yep. All right, let me open it up to the committee and see if anybody has questions.
No,
All
none at the,
Any question? Okay, Joe, go ahead.
none at the top of my head. No, I'm
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Thank you for your presentation. Great. I guess I just have one statement, really. And by the way, it's a great project. I love how many people it touches. I don't know if you guys even touched upon the high school. It's also going to benefit the high school. They played freshman and JV games up at Kelly, so that's great. I'm just worried about the cost, Rob. $50,000 for each dugout. Is that?
Yeah.
Seems high.
It seems high, Ted, but I'll tell you, I'm in construction, and you wouldn't believe what the cost is in the last 2 years, what projects cost. So trust me when you say that. I think we're saying that about a lot of things that nowadays.
Yeah.
Inflation's through the roof. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay.
We looked at a couple other towns with comparable projects as well as just Milton Baseball, as Rob mentioned, at Cunningham, doing the similar project a couple of years ago, and it's comparable, so it's not crazy. We were definitely surprised, though.
Great, thank you.
Another piece on that, Ted, is that, of course, we could save money if, Parks and Rec department, if Kevin went and GC'd it, but we also don't want to put that on Parks and Rec. We really want to outfit this out to a general contractor to make sure that the project's completely, worked out with subcontractors, and we don't want to either put that on a board or the town as well. So that's kind of the reason for the cost as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Pete, did you have your hand up?
I took it down.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. Well, thank you. Kevin, Meredith, and Rob, appreciate it. As a neighbor of Kelly Field, I live on Orono Street, and that field usage, both field use, it's great to see all the games out there, and just so this would be much needed. So thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, guys.
Good to see you again, Rob.
And
Yeah,
we,
good to see you. Back to work.
There you go.
all right. All right. Next up is Glover, I think. Am I right on the agenda? Somebody got their agenda in front of them?
Yeah, Glover.
Glover Outdoor Classroom, yes.
Okay.
Yes, hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. My name is Isabel Farrar, and I am here on behalf of the Glover PTO. I'm a Glover parent, and with kiddos rising second and fourth graders. And we have applied for a grant for just under $1,400 to help revitalize Glover's outdoor classroom. And I don't know if I can share my screen. let me try to share my screen. Sorry. I'm modifying my settings. Oh, shit. Sorry. No kids are around. I cannot share my screen right now, so I apologize. I will walk you through the materials that we sent you all for our application. But when Glover was built in the 90s, an outdoor classroom was thoughtfully designed, which is the middle of the interior of the donut that is Glover. This classroom was very well used and very well maintained. It was planned by landscape architects with beautiful native plants. And between COVID and then last year's drought, many of our plants have died. And so the good news is that we still have about a third of the plants remaining, but we did a survey this spring and made a list of the plants that were missing, and we're hoping to apply for funding to replace those plants. And so the funding application is just for the cost of the plants and for some watering materials. The plants themselves will be planted by parent volunteers. And then we're separately working with a landscape architect who's another Glover parent who's going to help update the plan to ensure that the plants that we're selecting are ready for the warmer and drier environment that we're facing at Glover. The outdoor classroom is used by all 6 grades of the elementary school, and it's used literally for every single different subject. The science classroom is out there. 2 of the major curricula focused on the outdoor classroom are a pumpkin curricula, where you plant pumpkins in the spring, harvest them in the fall, and then some are watched. You can watch them decompose over the winter and then resprout in the spring. There's a bulb curriculum also. The art class spends a lot of time out there. So it's this fantastic space that we're really hoping to revitalize. And that is my 5 minutes. And I welcome any questions that the committee has about the outdoor classroom and about what we're planning on doing. And I see one hand raised. I don't know if I should moderate the questions or if you all just want to throw them out there.
I was trying to do that, Isabel, and I had myself on mute, so I'll handle that. Thank you. But thank you for your presentation. Thank you for keeping it under 5 minutes. And Pete.
Those outdoor classrooms have been a tremendous resource for all the schools. And I think Glover's was particularly well used. So I'm delighted to see the revitalization. The only concern I have is care during, 2 things. One is some of the originally designed plants, I think the environment's probably a little too hot for and dry, but I'm concerned about care during the summer when, the school's not in session. And can you speak a little bit about how that'll be accomplished?
Yes, absolutely. So it's being accomplished in 2 manners. The immediate manner that it's being accomplished with is with volunteers, hoses, and sprinklers. So this summer specifically, we're working with the school superintendent and some of our parent volunteers to water the plants manually through volunteers. Separate from this $1,400 application, we're working on a much larger plan that would involve irrigation. And so I think that in the plan are hoses and a sprinkler. What we would do is purchase, before we get a professional irrigation system in, we would do a system of drip hoses on a timer. But we're very much focused on watering the plants that we plant, knowing that we don't want to waste money, and we want to keep alive what we have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there other questions?
No.
All right, thank you. I meant to say this at the top, and I will communicate this to the Kelly Field folks as well, but and maybe this is good timing because this is such a modest request in terms of total dollar amount, but this goes to really, this is a comment about the programs. As I think most people know, but I will say this, we've gotten about $3 million in requests for approximately $1 million or just a little over $1 million than what we're able to fund this year. So we're going to encourage, between eligibility and final application, everybody to kind of sharpen the pencils and see if they can do extra fundraising and find other sources, as much as possible. We're going to have some hard conversations on this committee of what we can fund or what we can't fund. That might mean saying no to some great deserving projects, or it might mean giving you partial funding for some deserving projects. So, I'm just putting that out there. We, obviously you can't make 1 million grow to 3 million in 1 year. So I think everybody understands that, but I just wanted to say that, Isabel, obviously you're coming in probably with the most modest request, but still, this applies to all projects, I think.
No, absolutely, Tom. And I, very much appreciate that statement. And we are planning on pursuing other avenues of funding. Mm-hmm. We have not yet applied for other grants, but the landscape architect parent has helped other projects apply for other grants. And then, of course, the Glover PTO chips in, and we do a lot of fundraising around Glover. But, the more sources of funding we have, the more successful it will be.
Exactly. We're also aware, and that's a really good point, and we're also aware of how CPA can help leverage other funding, right? I mean, you can say, hey, CPA gave us a grant of X, and hopefully you can use that to get other people saying, okay, I'll match that, or I'll you're on your way, so I will be, contributing as well. So anyways, that's, but I thank you very much, Isabel. That was great. And I echo Pete's comments too. The classroom, outdoor classrooms,
Thank you.
Great success.
Thank you, Isabel.
Right. Thank you for your consideration of our application.
Thank you. We will be in touch. All right, the Eustis Estate masonry repairs is next. I think Catherine is up.
Yes.
If I'm correct, right?
Just share my screen. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Pomploon. I'm a grants officer at Historic New England, and I am joined today by Jody Black, who is our supervising preservation manager for our property care team. Historic New England is the nonprofit steward of 38 different house museums across the region, including the Eustis Estate in Milton. The Eustis Estate was built in 1878 on Canton Avenue at the foot of the Blue Hills. It features an 80-acre landscape and incredibly intact architectural and design details. It is also a rare example of a stone dwelling designed by famed local architect William Ralph Emerson. And it is the masonry construction of this house that is the subject of our proposed project. So we are requesting support from the Milton CPC to repair vertical cracks in the mansion's masonry piers, which are posing a threat to the building's structural integrity. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jody to speak a little bit more technically about the problem and our approach to a solution.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Jody Black. I'm one of the project managers at Historic New England. Katie, if you want to advance the slide, I'll just talk about kind of where we're targeting the project, the proposed project. So initially in 2013, we focused our scope of work for masonry on the northeast corner of the building. So this is the east elevation of the Eustis Estate. We focused on this northeast corner because we found significant vertical cracking at the arches, and there was a lot of evidence of previous repairs or additional mortar campaigns that led us to hire a structural engineer to look at the arches in this section of the building. They ended up finding that the piers they have an interior core of bricks that is the structural element of the porch, and then what you see on the exterior is a separate layer of decorative brick and stone. And there's an open channel between these two sections of the building, and they're not tied back to each other. So this allows any moisture that gets into the masonry, a channel for water to just run through and then get trapped. And freeze thaw allows it to break apart the piers, the decorative masonry, as well as the inner core. So we did 2 different campaigns of mortar analysis during this time. We looked at the bed mortar as well as the pointing mortar, and then we did a initial masonry repair campaign in 2015. So what's proposed is kind of the second phase of work for next fiscal year. Go ahead, Katie. So this is what we found in the arches, a lot of vertical cracks. And what we ended up finding was that the mortar analysis shows 2 different types of mortar that are undersanded and overpigmented, and it contains an aggregate that we can no longer get. And they also discovered that the bed mortar, it is too soft, while the pointing mortar is too hard, which the mortar analysis said that they were incompatible for each other. So the recommendation was basically to scrap the mortar mix that was there and to come up with a different mix. So in 2015, we used a Type O mix from the National Park Service recommendation. And we made some initial repairs. So go ahead, Katie, to the next slide. So this scope of work for the next round is at the portico chair, which is 4 different piers that show some significant brick movement at the base. We're losing some bricks, and then we have some bulging at several areas of the brick piers. And so the scope of work would be to evaluate the mortar mix that we used back in 2015, see if we need to update that mix or change the mix, and then to make masonry repairs.
So for our estimated project budget for this, we are budgeting $5,000 for consultant fees, which would include some of that mortar analysis that Jody's referencing there, and then also the development of construction documents for the proposed project. We're estimating $160,000 for total cost for the repairs itself. And in terms of income, we have decided to request $80,000, or roughly half of the whole project, from Milton CPA. And we would also like to request $80,000 from the Massachusetts Historical Commission Preservation Projects Fund. That's their one-to-one matching preservation grants fund to support this project as well. And then Historic New England would supply the anticipated $5,000 needed for the consultant fees. So a total budget of $165,000 and an $80,000 request to the CPA. So lastly, just to talk about the public benefit to Milton of this site. So Milton's community preservation plan, as we know, it prioritizes projects that are visible, accessible, and have broad benefits to the community. And it also references the Eustis Estate as one of the community's notable historic resources that meets those criteria. The Eustis Estate was open to the public in 2017, and it's quickly become one of our most visited properties, welcoming nearly 15,000 visitors last year in 2022. It's open year-round for guided and self-guided tours, special programs, events, and the 80-acre landscape, which is right next door adjacent to the Blue Hills Reservation, is open daily, free of charge for passive recreation from dawn to dusk. We also like to highlight that new and more inclusive interpretation is now being offered at the USIS Estate as part of our programming, and as a result of Recovering New England's Voices, which is our multi-year research initiative through which we are challenging traditional narratives that we have been telling at our sites. So tours at the USIS Estate now highlight the stories of domestic workers and ground staff and immigrant laborers and others to tell a more fully authentic, diverse story of the history of this site. And of course, museum admission is always free for Milton residents. So thank you. That'll do it for our presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Katie. The question on the timeline for the Historical Commission funding, is that, have you already applied? Is that an annual round or something? That, what's the timeline?
Right, so we haven't applied yet. They typically award these funds annually, and we would expect to apply next winter with notification next spring. And in terms of general timeline, we would be budgeting and planning for this entire project to take place in our fiscal year 2025. So beginning in next spring, starting in April, going through the following calendar year.
Okay, so when you say next winter, you mean this December, January, February?
Yes, yeah. Their timeline changes every now and then. I think in 2022, applications were due in February, somewhere around there. But yeah, it would be this coming winter.
Gotcha. Thank you. Cheryl.
Yes, can you explain the timing of the commitment of these funds relative to the application to the Mass Historic Commission? Do you have to have these funds committed before you apply? Or is it something where you can do the application and raise the match?
The latter. So we would cite in the application where our anticipated match would be coming from. And it would certainly help us leverage an application if other funding was already in hand. But you don't have to have the cash in hand to apply to the matching program from NHC.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from other members of the committee?
All right, Tom, I'll take another one.
Go ahead.
As far as the masonry work that you did previously, is that the only place? I think you did a lot of work in your original project, if I'm remembering correctly. Is this the only place that this type of mortar was used, or do you anticipate that you're going to have some other repointing needs down the road?
We definitely anticipate more phases of pointing at the estate, just because of this incompatibility of the bed mortar and the pointing mortar. We know that this will be a multi-phase, multi-year sort of campaign for the building.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any final questions? All right, Jody, Katie, thank you very much. We will be back in touch with you. One of the things I probably also should have said at the top is that this is the second of three meetings where we're meeting with eligibility applicants. We're going to have a fourth meeting late this month to sort of evaluate where we are with all the applicants, and we will be communicating with you after that about the next steps. So.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think next up is, if I'm reading my agenda right, Winter Valley and Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah McLaren. I am the Executive Director for MRE. Some people know it as Milton Residences for the Elderly. And we just received approval from the town of Milton to build a new 36 unit on the Winter Valley property. It would be 34 single units and 2 double units. This building would be for those individuals that are at 50% of AMI and 62 or older. So it's essentially, if you're familiar with the Winter Valley property, it would be essentially a building that's very close to our building 5, which is the building located at the top of the property. Winter Valley and MRE are run as nonprofit organizations, and the opportunity to build this additional unit came upon the expiration of a restriction that was put on a lot that's on the existing property. So we proposed the building, we went through town approval, and it's been approved. In order to build the building, Winter Valley has done a refinance, and we are also in the process of waiting to hear from HUD on a grant application that we put in. And in my letter, I indicated that we were hopeful to hear in June. We haven't heard as of yet, but it could be any day. With the grant funds from HUD, the units would also have rental subsidy, which is vital to the affordability of the building. So that is important. And I submitted our application for consideration under community housing. I think our program goes nicely with in the town of Milton in your CPC plan. It specifically says to look for, parcels of land owned by nonprofits for development of affordable housing. So I think our project goes nicely with the grant fund ideas. Currently we manage about 300 units of housing in Milton. It's all affordable for seniors. And our wait lists at each property are about 150 people each. And the wait list can go anywhere from 2 to 3 years. So you can see there is a great need in this area for that type of housing. And we're hoping that our 36 units will help to meet that need. The construction cost, we estimate to approximate about $20 million. So it is a big project, and we are looking for the grant fund to help reduce some of those expenses. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. And let me open it up for questions.
Tom, how much are they, what's the request?
400,000. And let's see, Pete and then Cheryl.
I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear anybody talking.
Oh, so the question was just what was your total request to us? And it was 400,000, I believe, right?
I'm sorry, I cannot hear anybody talking.
That's the problem.
That'll be a problem with your audio output. I would go to your Zoom settings and check that. I don't know why I said that. She can't hear me.
Yeah, can you type that in the chat, maybe?
I'll email Sarah.
Tom?
So, yeah.
While she's not on.
Sarah, can you hear me now? No.
I can hear you.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay.
So I was thinking maybe you could try using the whiteboard. I don't know if you've used that.
I'm sorry, everybody's talking, but I can't. Can you hear me? Yes. I'm sorry. If there's questions and you want to put in an email format to me and send it, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, can we use the chat? Is there a chat in here?
I don't see a chat.
So it's the whiteboard is the only thing? Josh, is that you doing the whiteboard? What just took over the screen?
Oh God, it all.
It says that you cannot open a whiteboard during a screen share. At least that's the message I'm getting.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear everybody.
Oh,
I'm so sorry about that.
great. Thank you. All right, so let's, Pete had a question and then Cheryl had a question, so we're gonna go to them.
Josh, can you get rid of the whiteboard thing or the screen sharing so we can?
I've frozen. I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I have frozen. I'll unshare as soon as possible.
Okay. Tom, I didn't see in their application where they identified an amount that they're looking for from us.
I thought it was 400,000. Is that correct, Sarah?
I actually, I didn't put in an amount. I was to understand that first round was for eligibility. And I'm happy to discuss funds, if you would prefer funds to be specific towards a specific purpose in the construction. I certainly can provide that. Or if it's better just to present it as kind of a general to defray construction costs, we can present it that way as well.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I saw the 400. I don't know. Maybe I'm not remembering.
I think we need a specific request because we're fitting your request, you know, into a large number that we're doing. So I think we need you to come in with a specific dollar amount you're hoping to get from CPA.
Of course.
I think, and it also goes to one of the things that I think one of the discussions we'll have is whether or not, Sarah, we ask you to apply directly to the Milton Affordable Housing Trust. That is one, that's something as a relatively new committee, we have to figure this out. This is last year we gave a significant grant to the Affordable Housing Trust. They have some flexibility in how they can use it. So I'm not saying your application was totally appropriate, obviously, but that could be one potential sort of conversation that this committee could have at least. So
Okay.
Let me turn to Cheryl first.
My question was a little similar to Pete's in terms of the stack of resources that you'll be using. You mentioned the refinance and HUD and a $20 million project. Obviously 3 million total on a $20 million project, in terms of our total funds available. So it would be kind of helpful to understand, how this would help, if it would help with, you mentioned HUD really being important in terms of a rent subsidy. So if you said in the application that, given that how important that is, maybe these funds would help with some other component of it. Anyway, it would just be helpful to kind of target a piece of that overall project, I think. Just to, say that what the impact could be, because obviously the amount for your total project is going to be small, but the impact could be big, depending upon your total funding sources, right?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Sarah, thank you very much for the presentation. And we will be back in touch like we will with every applicant and give you some feedback.
Great, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next up is the Arts Center windows, and Joan is up, I guess.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I'm Joan Clifford from the Milton Arts Center, and we're requesting help with the windows at the Arts Center, but I have changed it. Well, after discussions, we have changed the proposal a little bit in terms of, I'm just going to share the screen. It's just only a little Word doc here with a photograph. Can you see that? No, I can't see it. Sorry, I gotta pull it up. All right, is that photograph of a window?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So originally we asked for 23 windows when we were first coming up with the whole building. But on more reflection and after reading the requirements, well, first of all, if this property is under historic value, it would have to be repair, and we agree with that it would be repaired. And so what we're really looking at is 13 main floor windows, and it's really just, if you can see, it's just the storm windows have started falling. Some of them have started falling out because the molding has cracked and they just dropped to the ground, and some of them are missing. So the scope of it has gone down a little bit in terms of what we're looking for from CPC funding. I'm going to stop the share.
Okay. Is that it, Joan, or do you have anything else you want to say before we go?
Well,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, I didn't, I thought the documentation I sent in, I didn't realize I was going to make the whole presentation.
You don't have to, it's a conversation.
All right, okay. That's about it. We are planning on also putting in a grant to the cultural facilities, Mass Cultural. It's competitive to go for this, but we are planning on putting in a grant application. It opens in November. I think the timeline is they decide in January and they let you know in May. So we are gonna look for other sources.
Okay. All right, questions. I see Cheryl's hand up. Cheryl, go ahead.
Hi, Joan.
Hey, Cheryl.
I think you leased the building from the town, right?
That's right.
Okay, and does your lease require you to do the repairs to the, what I would call like the base building, kind of? So it does?
Yes.
Okay, so, so there's not an opportunity to seek funding through other town means for anything like this for the windows, like through the capital improvement planning? I think the capital improvement planning committee is where capital requests go, but this, you don't have an opportunity for that through your lease, right?
Well, I can have another discussion with the select board and Nick Milano. He does know we're applying for this, and he did alert the select board that we were doing this. The money that we pay in rent does go to the repair of the building. So it's possible that the money can come from there. So I think that would be the conversation with the select board. I didn't know about capital planning before, but I could ask about that to Mr. Milano.
I'm just thinking, like you heard Tom say that there won't be enough funds to cover everything. So if there's some combination of sources, I'm just making really kind of a suggestion that you can continue to look at other sources too.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Pete. Unmute, Pete.
You didn't want to hear that anyway. So you're presenting today that this application is just to replace storm windows, not to do windows?
Well, according to the guidelines of the United States, I don't have the name in front of me. I think, right, I would think it would have to, after looking at and reading more into it, it looks like it would have to come under repair if this was deemed a historic property. I think the windows here on the inside look very good. They, you know, I think when they built them, they were custom. Everything looks good about the inside of the windows. It's really the outside. And when we talked about it more, it was more, since we put in HVAC splits, we don't even open the windows. So then I don't even think the sashes or the rope pulleys need to be repaired either. I think it just needs the outer side. And obviously I'm not a window, I'm not using the right terms, but it's just the storm windows and the repair of the outside, you know, where it's chipped and really just a painting type of the visuals for the outside.
It is on the state register, so it qualifies as a historic building for our purposes.
Okay.
But it also requires that work done on it is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. And I don't know, someone would have to tell me whether, you know, putting aluminum storm windows on the outside is consistent with those standards for repair. You know, scraping and painting is a maintenance thing and we can't fund that. So I think it needs a closer look as to what's really needed, whether it's window replacement or, you know, what it is. So I think it needs a little more exploration before we know exactly, and maybe between now and if you're invited to submit a funding proposal, you know, you can have a historic architect take a closer look and help you refine your proposal in a way that's, you know, appropriate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's good information. I mean, there are storm windows on there now. I guess the library, East Milton Library, put storm windows in, probably out of necessity. So I don't know exactly, you know, I really think it's the town decision about what happens on the outside of the building. So again, I can talk to Mr. Milano and the select board about that.
But and I don't know the answer to Pete's question too, what would be allowed by the Secretary of Interior's, you know, guidelines, but even if the town previously did something, it doesn't mean you can, you know, I don't think there's any grandfathering in of a bad decision the town might have made on a historic building.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I could say that. So I think the advice of getting somebody who does know that field and the Secretary of Interior's guidelines would be valuable. Cheryl.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one thing, thinking about what Pete was saying, what you're saying, Tom, is you could amend your application to maybe have a window assessment done by a historic preservation consultant.
Okay.
Those, I know like the Forbes House had one of those done at one point, so maybe you could speak to Heidi up there if she knows. I know a consultant named Jeff Gagne. He's out of Dorchester. He does that sort of thing. And that might be a good starting point, because then you can have a plan, you know, of what you would propose based on that assessment. And I think, you know, the energy efficiency component of it, you know, while you added AC, you do lose AC through those windows, I'm sure. And you're and you're losing heat in the winter through those windows. So sort of thinking about, you know, energy savings aspect of window replacement is an important thing too. And then of course, that's where you're keeping the water out. And, you know, unfortunately, lack of maintenance in terms of paint can cause pretty significant damage to the wood. And if you're missing caulking, if you get water in, that can cause these snowball effects of things. So having that sort of window opening assessed, you know, each one, and then having sort of a plan, some probably are worse than others, sort of a, maybe it's a multi-phase plan of what, you know, how you would tackle it, would give you a roadmap.
Okay. These are great resources. Thank you so much for helping me put that together and, my next steps. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. All right, we're doing pretty good on time. Almost, I think we're 1 minute, 2 minutes running behind, but not bad. I think Arthur Doyle is up next with the Milton, the Neponset River Estuary Project.
Thank you, Chair Callahan and members of the committee. I appreciate you allowing me to be with you this afternoon. My comments will follow up on the packet that I left at the end of May with the planning office, and I think was distributed to everyone. I don't know, Cheryl, if you and Kathleen have received it subsequently. I won't be redundant. You have great. Thank you.
Yeah, all members have the packet.
Great.
Yep.
So the portion of the Neponset River estuary included in this proposal was obtained by the town of Milton through an order of taking authorized by the town meeting on March 13th, 1965 for the promotion and development of natural resources and for the preservation of open space. According to the 1964 plan of land drawn up by the then town engineer, as approved by the Board of Selectmen at that time, and subsequently recorded at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds in 1965, the area consists of approximately 25 acres. An earlier survey from 1895 contains a number of delineations, including uplands, the Mount Hope Canal, and access to it. In general, this land is bounded by the streets of Cortlandt Circle, Riverside Ave, Thistle Ave, the Milton Quincy line, President's Golf Course, part of Granite Avenue, and the Boston Milton line and the Neponset River. Some observations made in walking this area include the possible inadvertent encroachment upon the land in one form or another, and the desirability for a clear delineation of the property line with the city of Quincy, as well as other properties in the area. This proposal is based on the will of town meeting that this area be again used for the promotion and development of natural resources and the preservation of open space. In 1996, a master plan for the Lower Neponset River Reservation was finalized under the auspices of the then Metropolitan District Commissioner, or MDC, now known as the Department of Conservation and Recreation, along with the city of Boston, the town of Milton, and the city of Quincy. Leadership and consultants to the master plan included the Commonwealth's Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, land surveyors, environmental engineers, and landscape architects. The first sentence to the master plan reads, "This plan is about keeping a promise." This sentence resonates with the will of town meeting, Milton's participation in the MDC master plan, and the endorsement of this proposal by the Milton Conservation Commission at its June 2023 meeting. These are the stated goals of that master plan, and they're as appropriate today as they were in 1996. Preserve, restore, and enhance the natural qualities of the river system. Increase views and public access to the river and reservation in appropriate ways and locations. Create a corridor plan which responds to the variety of recreational needs of the many communities in the area. Create opportunities along the corridor for people to learn about the river, local history, and culture of the area. Connect the Lower Neponset River Reservation with the larger metropolitan park system. Ensure that the highest possible emphasis is given to public safety along the corridor, and incorporate maintenance standards and life cycle cost effectiveness in the preparation of park and trail designs. There are a number of outcomes from the 1996 master plan. Most visible to many in Milton is Pope John Paul II Park across the Neponset River in Boston. Others are Squantum Point Park in Quincy in Edgewater Park in Mattapan. With the support of the Community Preservation Committee, Milton will be able to better preserve its open space portion of the Lower Neponset River Reservation and enhance its development and promotion of the significant natural resource in a manner appropriate for Milton. Be welcoming any questions, suggestions. The preliminary budget put forward was $60,000. The priority in the initial statement recognizes that this work would have to be done over several years. And the initial funding priorities would be for updated surveying, updated wetland delineation, and appropriate signage for the protection of the natural resource. Then other steps could take thereafter. We realize that your budget is constrained, and we would accommodate as best as possible whatever it is that the committee could afford for this particular initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. I appreciate that. The 60,000 is that? What is that? Is that based on just general knowing that field and estimating how much that costs? Is it based on any early, not bids, but literally prices that you've gotten, or?
None have been requested to date, but they are based upon past work with the Conservation Commission in the area of surveying, wetlands delineation, and signage, those three priorities that were indicated earlier. There will need to be planning, and there will need to be, in all likelihood, seed money for collaborative work with other entities, such as the city of Quincy, where there is a trail connection, a connectivity, possible activity with environmental resources, such as those that exist at the University of Massachusetts at Boston, which is right on an extension of this waterway, and so on down the line.
Okay.
But we would phase in according to the resources that could be made available, and be judicious about that.
Cheryl.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks, Arthur. Is this the land that's, I guess, from driving down Granite Ave towards the highway, would be off to the right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and I just wanted to understand if the goal would be to provide like a trail, so there would be some public access in that. When you mentioned the trail of Quincy in a connection, can you?
Yes, there are actually former and most likelihood railroad beds from past use in that area, one of which connects with Quincy, and you can walk clearly through Quincy, through Milton into Quincy and vice versa. About 60% of the people that I speak with when I'm down there for a walk are Quincy residents, and we'd be working with them about what we understand to be possible enhancements that they have in mind. There's no signage to delineate the towns. There's a peninsula that goes out, part of which is shared by Milton, the end of which is Quincy. There's a railroad bed going out to that end, very scenic vista. Evidence that there was once construction there, possibly a warehouse or a point of embarkation, disembarkation from the railroad to the city of Boston. We'd have to do some homework to find that out. There's another trail that goes out to the old Mount Hope Cemetery canal that was built in there, most of which is now fed, but the granite lining of that is very, very much intact. And that stretches across a wetland. So there are opportunities for access for multiple purposes. People do use it who know about it. Most people do not know about it. When you speak to them, many people have been down there for the first time. There are kayaking, canoeing opportunities, there are wildlife opportunities, natural preservation opportunities, and climate related change matters to be considered from that lower Neponset estuary.
Is there, on the Quincy side, well, I'm just curious if there's opportunity for bike connection. Like I frequently like to go on the Neponset Trail, you know, which takes you over to Quincy. I guess it's in Port Norfolk area there where they restored the wetlands.
Yeah.
It used to be that those warehouses, and which is anyway, I guess I'm just wondering whether you mentioned canoe and walking. I'm just wondering if you're thinking bicycle as well.
I wouldn't suggest that at this time, maybe somewhat in the distant future. This is a very rugged trail bed. It's almost discarded granite on the sides from the quarries, some typical railroad bedding at the best. When one does hike that, they want to be sure that they have very secure footing. In some areas. One would want to have a walking stick.
Arthur, I can't speak for the committee, and I don't know, but would there be interest in the Conservation Commission maybe hosting us on a site visit?
That would be a wonderful idea, and most
so that we could visualize it a little better.
I think that would be excellent.
I think some of us are, you know, a little bit familiar with this area, but never have waded out there. So yeah. So let us. We're probably going to do a site visit of the Milton Cemetery at some point, and maybe we add this to the list.
A nice September day would be probably a bucolic opportunity.
You don't want the 104 degrees that my thermometer says right now?
I don't think anybody would want that right now.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? All right. Seeing none, Arthur, thank you very much. This is very helpful, and we will be back in touch.
Thank you. And I'll send Josh a copy of my comments so that you all have them as well.
Perfect. Great.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thanks.
Right.
Tom, just quickly, did we lose Pete?
Thank you for pointing that out. It looks like we did. I don't think he, that might be, here he comes. He's coming back. Welcome back, Pete. All right, so let's, last but not least, Brian Kelly is, I believe, up for the mobile bandstand application. So Brian, thank you for your patience, and you're up. And I'm mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know if it was at the right place. I got confused. I got the Zoom invite, but it was saying 7:05 p.m. 8:05. I thought it was tonight.
We apologize for that. The time was 3 o'clock, but on the actual agenda, it had the old 7 o'clock start as if, so that was my mistake, and sorry.
No problem. I just checked in. I said, maybe I'm wrong. And I checked, I saw the meeting. I went, oh no.
So you're in the right place, and we're glad you did check in. Thank you.
All right. How do you want to? Did you want to have questions?
Yeah.
First,
So you missed the beginning. What we do generally is, if you want, you have 5 minutes to present whatever you want, and then we're trying to keep these to 10 minutes total. So 5 minutes of you, and then 5 minutes for questions. But you can take less.
Can you allow me to share my screen?
I can. I think you have screen sharing abilities.
Okay. All right. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So let me just make that small so I can see. All right, so the bandstand you see there is the one that we rent, with the Milton Music Fest has rented for the last 10 years. The one I'm talking about is a little smaller than that, a little more portable and a little less work. So, but that gives you an idea. That's this year at the Music Fest. You can see what it looks like. And the whole idea behind this was I was thinking of that new Manning Park and everything. This just tells you who I am. I think I know a lot of you. I have a little TV show. You'll see me once in a while when I talk about town. I was a member of the 350th committee, and I volunteered for years with the Milton Music Fest. I'm not active on the committee anymore, but I'm there helping out on the day of the event. So I have some experience with the mobile bandstand because we started renting them for the Milton 350th. And the particular unit that we use is really easy to use and handle and manage and set up, and it's very safe. So the idea is to revitalize our parks, strengthen community bonds. You can see here, this is what the unit would look like. It's an SL75. They're built in in Quebec, and they're one of the best units on the market. And that's you can see it can be pulled with a pickup truck, and you don't need a special license to pull it. And there's a video here. I'll send you a copy of this. My daughter helped me put this together, but I'll send it so you can have it and look at it, and you can watch the video. All right. Here, as you can see, there's a trailer. Put down the leveling legs, and you pop up the sides, which become the roof. And then there's a hydraulic button you push, and it raises the roof. And you can see it raises it higher in the front, a little less in the back. And then it has some bunting and stuff to put along the sides. It has stairs and railings. And there's an option for a ADA compliant lift also, if that's what you would want. Some communities have this, and you can see this is Grand Prairie, Texas, a community between Houston and Fort Worth, and they have theirs all wrapped. So you could actually wrap it, and you could actually put something like "brought to you by the Community Preservation Act," so something like that. And then when the unit was being used at one of the different parks, the people that are putting on the event could have banners made that will fit this exactly, and you can see all the different spaces where they can put some kind of information to the guests that are in the park that day. Here's Manning Park. As you can see, there's no gazebo, there's no band shell. So I heard there was a concert. I wasn't in town recently on the deck. I heard it was very successful. But I even looked at this with the road. This would be perfect. They could drive it straight in. Bingo. Lift it up, set it up, and you're good to go. So that would be a great place for this bandstand. And it would save you the money of what it would cost to put something more permanent in there. And also, by not being there permanently, it's a little safer. You can put the unit away as you're done with it, and less apt to have vandalism or something like that. Over here, you could take this Kelly Field, an aerial shot. You could use a place like Kelly Field, and you could actually transform it into anything you wanted to, but a big music art or any kind of a meeting or anything with just the flip of the switch. I talked to the police chief. I said, if we had this, would you want it for anything? And he thought it'd be great for like National Night Out. He had mentioned the National Drug Take Back Day. It would be good for that, he said. And for special events, and there is a special event coming up in town. He mentioned that Cassidy family is doing something. Cassidy Murray's family doing something. They're bringing the Stanley Cup to Milton. So something like that, they could have used a stage like this. You could have candidate forums in the park, neighborhood association block parties. I know the East Milton Neighborhood Association uses that little railroad field, or I forget what they call it, but that little park over by Andrews Park, this would work really well in. Other uses for it would be Memorial Day in Milton Cemetery. Instead, everybody be on ground level. All the audience is looking over, people trying to see. If it does start to rain, gets a little chaotic. Now all the guest speakers and dignitaries could be on the stage. The Milton Music Fest would love to be a part of this. And if I do, I believe I need some community organizations that would be sponsors they would definitely want to help sponsor this, including the Milton Arts Center. They would stop renting the tent, the mobile bandstand that they're using now. If it was available, they would love to use this staging for their weekend. Milton Arts Center, the same thing. They'd have a lot of need for something like this and would love it. And they could actually put on more events over in Manning Park, or they maybe could put it around town if they had the ability to move the equipment like this provides. I thought interfaith clergy services could have maybe an Easter Sunday service, maybe on Hutchinson Field or something like that, or any field that they chose. Milton Parks and Rec, I'm sure they could think of many uses for this. One thing I didn't think of when I was speaking to people is even drama. I was talking to Glenn Pavlicek, and he was talking about there's a company that provides drama classes to the students in Milton in the summer, and that could be something that you could put a play on this bandstand. So the possibilities are endless. I guess one last possibility was we could pull the trailer up to the top of the Blue Hills there, up to the Weather Observatory, and have a concert under the stars. And so some of the supporters, Linda Lee, I don't know if can you hear Linda Lee right now?
No.
No. Hello? Okay. So I try to be fancy and for the video. She's just talking about how great it would be for the Milton Music Fest if this was an available stage. It would save they spend about $10,000 renting a unit right now per year. And so that eats up a lot of the funds that the Copeland Foundation donates to the event. And with inflation, the Copeland Foundation is still giving the same amount that they gave 10 years ago. So it's not going as far as it used to. So we're depending more and more on other businesses to help in the town. And it seems like, some of them a little strapped after COVID. So this would be a big help to the Milton Music Fest. I talked to Joan Clifford. She has some notes here. She just talks about how music is so big in Milton Public Schools that a lot of these kids want to perform, and it just gives them a place to perform. She was talking about how after the last graduation, they were having one of their music nights at the Milton Arts Center. She didn't think a lot of these teams would show up, but they showed up. And so she thinks there's a real need for outdoor music events. And she thinks Porch Fest has been very successful, and she thinks this would just be a big addition. And there's some pictures of some of the performers over at the Milton Arts Center. So that's basically it. It's pretty simple. I did give some documentation that the Community Preservation Act does allow for bandstands. And I wasn't sure about a mobile bandstand, but then I looked even closer. They allow mobile stadium seats as long as they're not giant, huge, giant ones, but they allow smaller ones that are mobile. So if they don't allow bandstands and they allow mobile stadium seats, I don't see why they wouldn't allow a mobile bandstand. So basically that's it. Let me stop the sharing here. Okay,
Great.
any questions?
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for all your work and also the creativity of this proposal. I do think what you said at the end is kind of our challenge to see. I haven't fully explored it to see if I appreciate the research you've done, but I think the mobile nature of it is unique enough that I think it's got a few people scratching their head about whether or not even though it's a great idea, whether it's CPA eligible is something I think one of the hurdles we'll have to get some feedback on and debate ourselves. Sure. But let me open it up to questions. Ted.
Hi, Brian. Thank you. Brian, who do you see? It looks like it would take a little bit of expertise, not too much, operating this thing, but who do you see as managing this?
Well, I see a few. I would say that maybe a person from consolidated services in town, someone from there, from the arts, from consolidated facilities. I'm sorry, someone from the arts center, maybe someone from the committee with the Music Fest, and so those are three. You could have another DPW person, I think you could ask who would be interested in doing it. Richard Wells would probably volunteer to do it because this is not a difficult setup and he has a pickup truck. So, but I think you need a few people from some diversity so that it could be used by different groups at different times. And you wouldn't have to worry about the same people being available to set it up. But there is a video. If you go to stageline.com, there's a video on the products, and this is the SL75. You can see from the packet of information, and they show a video of it being set up, and it's not rocket science. It really isn't.
What, I guess related to that question, where would it live in between uses?
I know the Milton Music Fest, they leave a trailer over at the DPW yard that they store a lot of the stuff that they use every year. They also have about 100 or more plastic chairs that are available to other groups to use at events. So you could have those chairs to use anyway. I'm sure they would share them. They've shared them already. So that would be one option. But another option would be on the yard behind the Milton Art Center. Now, the reason I say that is because they've put music events outside in their yard. And so they could almost have an impromptu event as long as they had a person there that was certified to operate the machine, to operate the rig. They could open it up, set it up, and immediately have an event without anyone moving the stage or making any arrangements, as long as there was no one on the calendar that had already reserved it for something else.
And another question I have you talked to the folks behind the pergola for the deck property and how
I have not.
How this would interact?
I think I saw, Tom, was there something in the Milton Times just recently that said something about that? Because
they've applied to us.
Me.
They've applied to us.
Oh, they've applied to you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't want to, step on any other group's toes. So that's something you guys have to look at and see what makes more sense for the town. I don't know what that's going to cost or anything. So I like this idea only because it doesn't limit it to just one section. The gazebo is a great thing, but it's more convenient for the people in that part of Milton. Not saying that people don't make the drive, but this is something that has some flexibility. Could be used even for graduations and things like that. The quote I showed you includes stairs for each side so that you could have people walking across the stage. That was one of the concepts. So there's a lot of uses for this, but obviously something else on the deck would be probably nice too. So.
Yep. Okay. Other questions?
Not offhand.
All right, Brian, thank you. Thank you for finding us. And thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the creativity, like I said.
Hey, I appreciate all you're doing. This is going to be a busy committee over the next few years. I have a feeling.
This is already a busy committee. Probably will get busier. You're right. You're right. So, all right.
Thank you so much.
Brian.
Bye-bye.
I think the only other thing we have on the agenda is just a placeholder in case Kathleen was here around grant agreements. But I don't think we have any update on that. I think we need to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Joe, there's a motion to adjourn. A second? Do I hear a second?
Nobody else wants to go.
Oh, nobody wants to second that.
I'll second it. I was muted.
We'll meet in perpetuity. So, all right, so roll call, Joe, on the motion to adjourn.
Yeah, Joe Duffy, Housing Authority.
And that's a yes. I assume that's a yes vote. That's
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Ted.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Tom, myself, yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll do this at 7, I believe, next Wednesday. And I think Julia may be listening, and our condolences go out to you, Julia. So very sorry. And not every member knows about all of this, so I will send people an email, but Julia had a loss in her family this week. So
Sorry to hear that.
Yep. All right, we are adjourned, and thank you.
We'll talk next week.
Yep.